Tourism leaders across the Caribbean have been meeting to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on cruise shipping to the Caribbean and plans to revitalize the industry. We have more in this report.
Globally, the Caribbean accounts for over 38% of the cruise market. The cruise industry reportedly contributes approximately $2 billion to the Caribbean each year. COVID-19 has dealt a severe blow to cruising to the Caribbean. It has resulted in a cessation of cruise lines, which has had a direct negative impact on ports across the region.
What that means is that we have a direct impact on ports, certainly here in Barbados, in a number of areas besides the broader tourism input. And so we are going to be looking throughout the region and certainly in Barbados around issues like what this means for port infrastructure, which is a big deal for all ports across the Caribbean. We are talking about things like the marine charges. What are the experiences that our tourism partners are expecting when they come through the region?
The influence of the cruise industry is far-reaching. Many Caribbean islands rely heavily on the positive multiplier effect cruise liners create. A fall in cruise tourism affects many who rely on tourism for their livelihoods. A number of measures are being examined to help the Caribbean cruise industry bounce back, including new revenue opportunities.
What are the new revenue opportunities that will emerge out of a resumption of cruising? What will it look like given the erosion in market share? You've seen a 45% layoff of Carnival Cruise Lines in the last week. You've seen a number of cuts in the workforce at Royal Caribbean, the two largest entities, and you've seen a plummeting in their stock on the market. So what does that mean? What does that mean for their new models with the Caribbean? We're going to be having those conversations. For those of us that are home ports like Barbados, it means that there has to be a new relationship which evolves between airlift and cruising, because we have the air-to-sea transactions. Our onshore activity, obviously, in terms of our pre- and post-cruising relationships with our hotels, what does that look like? The critical thing is going to be consumer product satisfaction. We in the Caribbean have done an extraordinary job, and we have been recognized publicly for our containment efforts. Every country in the region, we have been able to contain this thing and have been able to keep our populations as safe as possible in the face of what we're dealing with. So how do we use that now as part of our conversation going forward in terms of how we develop new protocols to treat to receiving cruise ships again in a new COVID environment? And then, of course, what does our destination offer in terms of new products? And that is a broader conversation with our tourism officials. And we're really looking forward to the resumption of those conversations. But beyond that, there are a couple of very practical operational considerations that we're looking at. Labor costs, fuel costs, general operational costs. What are the regulatory and environmental issues surrounding this? What does the maritime law say about this? Emission control. We are small states. We've been talking certainly here in Barbados a lot at the level of our Prime Minister extensively and globally on the issues of climate change and how they affect small states. How do we now engage with the cruise industry in a new environment, not just around environmental matters, but public health matters? Those are going to be some of the critical things going forward.
Tourism leaders are reportedly working on common protocols that will take all the issues identified into account. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Carol Francis.